Hi, I'm Chris, and welcome to Dark Days Radio presents Dark Iron. And for this new series of episodes for the YouTube, we are looking at heroes and villains of Warmachine and of the grander Iron Kingdoms. So we're going to start off with a character that is a big feature of the current edition and has been there since day one and has been a firm favourite of mine in the games, and that is Allister Caine. So Allister Caine was born to some lowly parents and has a younger sister in the town city of Bainsmarket. And growing up there, he made extra coin by essentially being a pickpocket. And of course, he'd already begun to tap into his nascent, magical abilities. And in particular, he'd already mastered, to an extent, the ability to teleport, which of course served him well as a thief. Trouble, of course, caught up with him and with his family, and it was at this time in 591 AR that he basically got recruited by Magnus, and he took Magnus's advice, joined the Cygnar army, and a year later he's at Point Born at the Strategic Academy, where he is training to be a member of the Gun Mages, the Order of the Arcane Tempest. Now, Gun Mages are a relatively new thing within the Cygnar army. They've only just formally been made part of the army to make it structured training for magic users who are able to master their arts through pistols, what are known as mage locks. And he also there excelled in the fact that he was using unorthodox spells, pushing things to the limit. So going off menu, as it were, with spells he would channel through his shots. This riled up his instructors. And it was also around about this time that Captain Lynch of the Black 13th was also in training. I believe was in training or was also instructing people. Now, it came to the attention that Caine had significant abilities, and one of the other abilities he had that came to light was the fact that he was able to control warjacks and labourjacks. So he was actually more than just a gun mage and a magic user. He was a warcaster, and in fact the first gun mage warcaster. So he basically was booted out of the academy there and sent straight to Caspia to the battle school to train as a warcaster. And in 593 AR, he was in Orvin as a journeyman warcaster, going through the final stages of his training, on his way to basically be apprenticed to Magnus. He ran into his old friend Tylen. Tylen was a thief in Bainsmarket with him, and he had learnt through Tylen of his father's harm at the hands of a gangster, leaving his father very ill and crippled. So Caine deserted his position, headed to Bainsmarket, and executed the gangster who caused this harm to his father, hanging the man from the Bainsmarket city clock tower. Caine, of course, was ready to take on the role as journeyman warcaster and become a full warcaster, and of course be promoted. Instead, was imprisoned for his desertion and for this crime, and was essentially left to rot until the spring next year, when, knowing of his abilities, the Scout General Bolden Ribald offered Caine a deal. Become one of Ribald's spies and assets to be used as part of the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service, and in return, be cleared of his crimes. So, Caine obviously accepted, and in the winter of that year went to Cyril, where he was stationed there, keeping records of the ships that came and went, off the past the coastline there. He was mentored by Lord Walder Brigham, who they fought against Shardal skirmishers, and Cadoran scouts. They faced Crixian forces coming in as well, and Walder essentially became proud of Caine to the extent of seeing himself as a surrogate father to Caine, seeing Caine as his finest student. And so then, as a result of all this, Caine finally got orders from Ribold and was sent to Fellig. Now, in the following year, Caine, having now advanced in status and having had promotion again, had new custom Warcaster armor designed for his abilities. Also sported his Spellstorm pistols. So these are Magelock pistols designed for his Warcaster abilities, because Warcasters make use of what we call rune plate to further channel their arcane energy into to enhance their weapons and their armor further. So we've now got a combination of the runic shot of gun mages combined with the runic rune plate of Warcaster weaponry and equipment. So that combined together makes Caine a fearsome opponent. So armed with these twin Magelock pistols, Caine faced Cadoran soldiers as they invaded, and on the battlefield he further exerted himself, learned even new spells, to the extent that he unlocked his, what we would call in game his feat, but essentially he unlocked the height of his arcane ability, where not only was he able to fire salvos of devastating spell shots, he was also able to slow time to the extent that he was able to wipe out nearly all of the invading Cadoran forces, turning the tide of the battle. He woke up basically the next day having blacked out in the process because it was overwhelming for him, but he gained a lot of respect for the act that he had performed. So Ribold returned, following up on his deal, and Caine was sent to Northgard and further, because he was sent to investigate the coup against King Leto. So during the time of Caine joining the army and through his training, in that time period, we will have had in Corvus, we would have had Vinter Relthorn would have been deposed, gone off into the east, returned with the Scorn, and Ribold and his assets are tied up with trying to eliminate threats to the new King Leto, which includes loyalists to Vinter Relthorn, and of course manipulating and funding these loyalists, who still exist within the nobility of Cygnar, is Kin Reynard of Lael. And so Caine was sent into Lael with an experimental warjack known as Ace, which was able to use something called an umbrella to give it a stealth shield, stealth cloak, whatever. And through Caine's work, he was able to put an end to this conspiracy. But the outcome of this was that King Reynard died, apparently due to natural circumstances, and this precipitates the eventual invasion of Cador into Lael. So Caine has promotion, he's now a lieutenant, he's deployed against Cadoran forces which are pushing into Lael, and to help Lael's defence he's joined by fellow gun mages, including the newly formed black teams, they're strike forces of expert marksmen, and this is when he would meet and form firm friendships with people like Captain Lynch and Bastion Folk. So this is around 604 AR, so this puts us into 1st, 2nd edition of Warmachine. in that time period. Bastian Falk in particular was such a good friend of Caine, he would also cover for Caine when Caine would desert his position, because he was actually performing espionage and assassination missions on behalf of Ribold. So Caine nominally serves the army, but also does black book operations, which no one knows about except for the Master Scout General. So it's around this time as well that Caine is tasked with hunting down Vinter Railthorn's heir, Julius. And the chaos of war allows Vinter's loyalists to come forward, trying to take advantage of this heir. And with the war expanding, though, Caine had to leave his hunt and be pulled back to the front lines. Though eventually, in 609 AR, Caine tracks down Vinter's heir, who is known as Julius, and this is around about the time when we get the Second Cygnar Civil War. He ends up coming face to face with his old friend and recruiter, Magnus, and the two of them, rather than kill the heir, they protect him. They lead a mercenary army in defense of Cygnar, with Magnus defeating Vinter and Julius taking the throne from his uncle. His uncle willingly stepping down, and Leto is then installed as High Chancellor, putting an end to this entire civil war. It also means Magnus is now on good terms with the Cygnaran army, and again we have Caine. Caine, is moving up the ranks, though not before Caine gets into more trouble. So Caine, having seen too much war, decides to leave the army. But that's an annoyance for Ribold and others, so Caine is made a criminal for this and hounded by mercenaries and assassins and other people looking to settle a score. So in order to get people off his back, he makes a deal with a Thammarite sorceress. This witch said that with a sliver of his soul, she could create a phantasm that would look like him and therefore act as a decoy. Little did he know that this decoy would become what would be known as the Hellslinger Phantom, and part of its task was to hunt down Caine's daughter, who Caine had not even met or knew of, but the witch did. The witch being the War Witch, the Wraith Witch, Denegra of the Nightmare Empire of Crix. So now we've got this Hellslinger Phantom going around, hunting down Caine's daughter, murdering people in the process, pinning those murders on Caine, meaning in order to put an end to these murders, the Black 13th, consisting of Lynch, Ryan and Watts, head off to try and capture or kill Caine. In the process, Captain Lynch is killed, and the others realise that Caine's telling the truth, that he isn't behind all these murders. And so Caine and Ryan and Watts join together to hunt down the Hellslinger Phantom and also rescue his daughter Cynthia Roscoe, from Denegra. That doesn't all go to plan, and Cynthia is carried away by Denegra on her giant beast to Skellig, where Denegra is going to perform a ritual when one of the moons is in the right position, and this will corrupt Cynthia and fully turn her into the to the service of Crix. So, with the help of Bastian Falk, the spy Anastasia Debray, and rifleman Kel Bearlock, that group with Caine, they at first seek to convince the Cygnaran armed forces and Scout General Ribold to let them go on this mission. They're initially denied it. Caine makes the point that you're looking at Crick's potentially now having a brand new Warcaster who is clearly going to be as powerful as Caine, maybe more so. And so with that threat, and also with the offer of returning to the army, Caine is then given access to, they've already stolen at this point Ace. They've recovered Ace from the armories, but they're also given an experimental airship to get them all the way to Skellig. So there they face Denegra and her forces. They rescue Cynthia, and they return. Ace, though, is destroyed in the process. Kelbaylock is dead, and Ribold reinstates Caine, Ryan, and Watts, with Ryan promoted to lead the Black 13th. Caine is now a major. He goes up and down ranks quite a bit, but he's now eventually a major. And this group, with Bastian Folk as his second in command, and a brand new Warjack in the case of Deuce, plus a new recruit to strengthen, to join Ryan and Watts. They're joined by Corporal Glover. They form an elite strike force that are known as the Hellslingers. They go off and do dirty work that no one else in the Cygnar armed forces can do, because they're able to move quietly, silently, and quickly. Deuce itself is now follows on from Ace. It has it's a much larger, it's a heavy warjack. While it's not stealthy, it does have a long-barreled cannon, which is designed using the same mechanics as Caine's Spellstorm pistols. So it's in effect got the ability to fire rune shot with Caine, feeding his power into that Warjack. The Warjack as well uses the new Striker chassis, so it is running off storm chambers, so it's galvanically powered and therefore can operate for extended periods without needing to be refueled with coal and so forth. So we now have this elite group who not only are hunting down enemies of the state and going behind enemy lines, especially against the Orgoth once they arrive, they are hunting down the remnants of various forces of the Infernals. So they're looking for demons, they're looking for also Infernalists. They're working together with witch hunters from the Order of Illumination and with the help of the Fraternal Order of Wizardry. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised then if it's not in the lore, but honestly, I'm not surprised Caine hasn't had a run-in with Alexia, because they're after the same sorts of enemies. Hence why in my own personal army, I run Alexia with Caine, and it's what I call the Dead Man's Hand army, because Alexia is a necromancer, Caine, a gambler, as well as being a drunk and a lout and expert marksman. It just seems to fit together quite well. And then, as I said, with the Orgoth arriving, Caine and the Hellslingers operate behind the Orgoth lines in Kador and in Ord. And this also means, because of the alliances made to fight back against the Orgoth and their allies, the Cricks, it does mean that Caine and the Hellslingers will, in the lore at least, team up with the Khadorans. And, of course, Caine and the Hellslingers operate as with other allies within the Cygnaran forces, so they're often going to support the Storm Legions and the Gravedigger forces, which means Caine at times will even fight side by side with his daughter, who is now grown up and part of the Gravedigger armies, and herself is a sort of gun mage, though her choice of weapon is a rocket launcher. But that's Caine in a nutshell. I hope you've enjoyed this. The next one we're going to cover is going to be Denegra, who has also had quite an interesting story through all editions, and of course had encounters with Allister Caine. And then I think after that one, I'm going to cover Ursus, because Ursus is a an interesting character in his own right, having been through previous editions, being a member of the Cadoran Armed Forces, but then has in the recent edition flipped factions as he was forced out and discovered his heritage is based within the forces of the Orgoth. If you've got other suggestions of characters you wish me to cover for this lore series, please drop a comment on this video or on social media, and I will dig into that for you. So that's all for now. So goodbye.